winners was the Boeing Stearman biplane, an open cockpit aircraft constructed of wood, fabric, and tubular steel. There were more than 24 different variants of the Stearman and more than 10,000 built. Used also by the RCAF, it earned another well-known nickname, the Cadet. These are the Stearman biplanes. Fairchild PT-19, a monoplane that was used by the Army Air Forces, the British Royal Air Force, and the Royal Canadian Air Force. Like the Stearman, the PT-19 was an open cockpit design. Advanced training was accomplished in aircraft like the Texan, the 600 horsepower, 2 flights of 4. Listen to the sound that they make as they go over. There were also multi-engine trains. One was known as the AT-11 Kansan, built by Beechcraft. Also had a light cargo designation of C-45. The AT-11, the Twin Beach. Right now are 2 Curtiss P-40 Warhawks, a 1937 design that at the time of Pearl Harbor was our #1 fighter in the Pacific. Directly to our left, the 2 Curtiss P-40 Warhawks with Allison B-12. 3 B-25 Mitchell bombers, 2 of them B-25s, 1 actually in Marine Corps PBJ-1 livery. The Japanese and American navies converged on a tiny volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The stage was set for a dramatic shift in the momentum of the Pacific theater, tipped off to Japanese plans by U.S. cryptographers who had broken Japanese radio codes. PBY Academy of Flying Boats were deployed from Midway Island to search hundreds of miles of ocean for enemy ships. One of them found the Japanese fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, here come the Wildcats. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto was commander-in-chief of the Japanese combined fleet and mastermind behind Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. In the spring of 1943, American codebreakers intercepted and decoded a message with Yamamoto's itinerary for an airplane trip between 2 islands in the Solomon Islands area of the South Pacific. On April 18th, a flight of 18 Lockheed P-38 Lightnings was dispatched from Cookham Field on Guadalcanal on a long, low-altitude, circuitous route designed to evade enemy radar and maximize the element of surprise. Here comes the fork-tailed devil, the P-38 Lightning, which shot down Yamamoto's plane. The mission, nicknamed Operation Vengeance, not only avenged the deaths of 2,400 Americans at Pearl Harbor, but it also deprived the Japanese of one of their finest military strategists. Known as Hitler's gas station, Ploiesti was a huge complex of Romanian oil refineries that supplied Germany with more than 1/3 of its fuel. After identifying it as a high-priority target, military strategists initially opted for a single large raid by B-24 bombers attacking from an altitude of just 200 feet. Flying missions low altitude would help the Americans avoid enemy radar and increase the accuracy of their bombs. But the low altitude would also put the aircraft and crews at greater risk. The B-24 was selected for the mission because it was the only U.S. bomber that could manage the 2,400-mile round trip from Libya to Ploiesti and back. Though complex and finicky to fly and maintain, the U.S. produced more B-24 bombers than any other. And in 1944, assembly lines rolled out a new one every 58 minutes at plants in San Diego, Fort Worth, Tulsa, and Detroit. But the Americans lost nearly 1/3 of their bombers and 500 airmen during that low-level raid on August 1st of 1943. So military leaders adopted a new strategy of daily raids from a higher altitude with long-range fighter escorts like the P-51 Mustangs, incrementally destroying Ploiesti's production capacity over a period of 14 months. As attacks on the oil refineries of Romania continued during the summer of 1944, American forces pushed into France. Army Air Forces Commander General Hap Arnold noted the increasing number of vehicles along the side of the road that had just run out of gas. Here's the Liberator with the Mustangs. In the early days of the war, after the Allies had decided that the British would conduct nighttime bombing raids on German targets and the Americans would bomb during daylight hours, mission losses were horrific. Without fighter escorts, the U.S. bombers in particular suffered unsustainable losses to German fighters and anti-aircraft flak. By some estimates, the fatality rate of B-17 and B-24 crews was put at nearly 50%. That began to change with the introduction of the P-51 Mustang as a long-range fighter. When outfitted with external fuel tanks made of a kind of paper mache, here comes the Mustang. Mustangs also flown by the 332nd Fighter Group, the Red Tail Squadron of the Tuskegee Airmen. By 1944, the German Air Force was struggling to survive. In a single week that February, the Allies sought to hasten the end. Operation Argument, better known as Big Week, was a series of large-scale Royal Air Force and U.S. bombing raids on German aviation factories. On several raids, more than 1,000 a second. The Flying Fortress, 10 crew members in each aircraft. The first Allied soldiers in France on D-Day arrived by parachute just after midnight on June 6, 1944. 13,000 paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions made the trip in more than 800 C-47 transport aircraft. These lead elements jumped into Normandy to secure a series of bridges, causeways, and crossroads vital to the success of the Allied invasion of France. The C-47 began its life as the Dutch. In 1945, General Dwight D. Eisenhower credited 4 weapons to winning the war: the bazooka, the jeep, the atomic bomb, and the C-47. About 11,000 of those were built, and about 1,100 remain flyable around the world today, some with turbine conversions on their engines. The two 19 managers and the Curtis Helldiver nicknamed the Big Tail Beast. It began in mid-December of 19 aircraft in normal kinds of temperatures. Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the B-29. Over 12 million Americans answered the nation's call over the course of the Second World War. We are going to have now what is known as a missing man formation. It serves to remind us of those who sacrificed their future for that of our nation. And it's a tradition which dates back to World War II. The symbolic moment when a single aircraft breaks formation and soars skyward, leaving behind his comrades in arms. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please help us recognize our fallen heroes and stand while Taps is being played. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Thanks to the Texas Flying Legends for performing the missing man formation. 70 years ago, the world rejoiced, ladies and gentlemen. London's Trafalgar Square was the scene of an immense impromptu street party. Joyful Frenchmen celebrated on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and vast crowds gathered in Moscow's Red Square. The United States, although the country knew there was still much work to be done in the Pacific, huge celebrations were held in Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, and especially New York's Times Square. Every contributor to the arsenal of democracy had done their part, from the servicemen fighting for their country overseas, to the factory workers and businesses providing those servicemen with the weapons of war so vital to their success, to the families who went without so that the boys overseas could have all that they needed. Victory was a collaborative effort, a triumph that the entire country could be proud of. And 7 decades later, we are no less proud. For all those here today who played a role in America's victory in World War II, whether in military or civilian capacity, thank you for your service. For everybody else, thank you for joining us here today to commemorate our country's victory in World War II and recognize the men and women who made it possible.